How much do you really need to retire early? I did it at 48 with half of what experts say you needed. That was 3 years ago. I haven't gone back to work and I'm not broke. Every retirement calculator told me the same thing. It wasn't enough. They were wrong. And not because I got lucky. It came down to a few levers most people never touch. And one number that nobody checks. And that number is, by the end of this video, I'll reveal that number, and it's probably lower than you think. And so you can run the math yourself tonight. I've put the whole method on a free one-page worksheet. Stick around to the end and I'll show you exactly where to grab it. If you're new to this video, welcome. My name is Emilio. This channel has one goal: getting you retired as early as possible so you can live the life you really want years before you thought you really could. If that's what you're after, would you please click the like button and subscribe? All right, let's dive into it. I want to take you back to where I was before I came very close to missing the life I'm living right now. For years, I had a spreadsheet, actually multiple spreadsheets. And at the top of every spreadsheet sat a dollar amount, usually around $1 million or more. The number changed depending on who I was listening to, but that number was never mine. It came from retirement articles, gurus, calculators. Every expert with a retirement chart said the same thing. You need at least $1 million to cross the finish line. And here's the truth. I made decent money, nothing to brag about, multiple six figures. To everyone else, I looked like I was winning. But every time I opened my spreadsheet, the message was the same. Not there yet, just a little bit further, a couple more years, 10, 20. You know what a couple more years really is? One of the most expensive phrases in the English language, because you pay for it at 65 or 70 with some of the healthiest, freest years you have left. And for what? For a couple of dollars? Are you really ready to trade in the best years for a couple $1,000s or more a year for the rest of your life? I figured this out over the last 3 years. But you know what actually kicked it off? I got laid off. I'm not gonna lie to you, it rattled me. It shook my world. When you're earning multiple six figures, that lifestyle is hard to let go of. I was 48 and the finish line still years away, or so I thought. And I watched my prospects fizzle in front of me. At first, I worked all day and night to find another job. Nothing stuck, so I had to take inventory of my life. There I was, staring at spreadsheets telling me I was only a quarter of the way to retirement, and I was almost 50. Luckily, I had built up great savings, and I decided and taste the retirement life early. I mean, isn't this why we try to retire? To do the things we've been holding out for? But I still did what every panicked person with a spreadsheet does. I opened every retirement calculator I could find, and one after another came back with the same verdict: you don't have enough. Keep working, find another job, put your head down, come back in 10 years. As my head started to clear, I kept staring at those screens. All that red saying insufficient, thinking, how do I get to $1 million? And then I finally asked the question I should have asked years earlier. Who decided that I needed $1 million in the first place? Maybe I could find my own way to retirement. So let's break down the supposed $1 million rule. Because once you see how it's built, you can't unsee it. Most of these online retirement calculators run on two rules of thumb stacked on top of each other. Rule number one, in retirement, you'll need to replace 80% of your working income. Rule number two, to be safe, only spend 4% of your savings each year. Sounds reasonable, don't you think? I questioned it. Now watch what happens when you stack them. Say you earn $100,000. The calculator says you'll need $80,000 a year. Divide that by 4% and boom, you need $2 million. Earn less and you land somewhere around the famous $1 million mark. That's the entire sophistication behind the number keeping you at your desk. But did you catch what the calculator just did? It never asked you what you spend. It looked at what you earn, and it assumed that your life stayed exactly the same after you retired. Same cost every year, adjusted up for inflation until you're 95. That's the plan. That's the worst case scenario built on autopilot. And this is the worst part. These experts paid no price for being overly cautious. There's no headline when somebody dies rich because they saved twice as much what they needed and never got to spend the difference during their best years. What good are these decisions about money once your prime years are gone? Okay, so if starting from your income is wrong, what's the right starting point? This is the one number I said nobody checks. The number I teased at the beginning of this video. Are you ready? Your real annual spending, not your income. Not a percentage of your income, the actual amount of money that leaves your accounts in a year to run your life. I know it sounds too boring to be the secret, but honestly, do you really know your number? Not a guess, the real figure. Almost nobody does. We know our salary to the dollar and our spending to the nearest question mark. Boring and simple is exactly what makes this easy. And getting clear on your real number is what you need the most. So what's the first thing I did after the layoff? Once I pulled myself together, I pulled 12 months of statements, every account, every credit card, everything. And I added up what my life actually cost. I cut what I didn't need, and I took a fresh look at my life. My number came out to be $60,000 a year. That's my real number. It's nowhere near 80% of my old income. Not even close. And I'm not skimping here. That covers a place to stay and travel, and I travel a lot. The moment you have that number, the entire question changes. When do I hit that magic milestone? It becomes, what does it actually take to cover $60,000 a year? And once you understand the 3 levers I'm about to show you, the answer turned out to be a lot closer to the 500,000 I already had compared to anything the calculators were telling me. Now, the real spending number gets you in the door, but I promised you the levers that most people never touch. These are what turns maybe and barely into yes comfortably. And the first one shocked me the most when I found it. Lever number 1, your spending doesn't stay flat in retirement. It declines. Planners have names for these phases: the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. I know it sounds made up and crazy, right? But the data behind it is the actual spending of real retirees, not a theory. The go-go years are roughly the first stretch of your retirement. That's the time you travel, when you make projects, the peak spending you'd love to last forever. But we all slow down. In the slow-go years, you stay closer to home and the fun spending drifts down. And in the no-go years, it drops off a cliff. Study after study shows the same downward slope. But the standard retirement calculator, it draws your spending as a flat line, rising with inflation for 40 years. Think about what that means. The calculators are pricing in your no-go years like your go-go years. They're charging you an 85-year-old life at a 55-year-old price for decades. And it's telling you the total is what you need. It sounds crazy because it is. And you don't need a study to believe this one. Think of anyone you know in their 80s. Are they booking flights, renovating kitchens, buying boats? Or is their life smaller, quieter, and dramatically cheaper than it was when it was 60? We all know how this curve goes. We've watched our parents and grandparents live it. And the only people pretending your spending stays flat forever are the ones selling you bigger numbers. Because bigger numbers mean bigger fees, right? But here's why this lever matters more than money. This is the part I'd print on every retirement calculator if I could. These go-go years only happen once, and they're on a timer. Retire at 62, and statistically, you've got about 13 healthy, active years ahead of you. Retire at 55, that's about 20. That's 7 more years. That's 50% more healthy retirement. Every year you delay doesn't add a go-go year to the end. It deletes it from the front when you actually want to use it. That reframe broke something loose in me. I wasn't just over saving. I was paying for the extra safety margin with the exact years that the margin was supposed to protect. Here's another way to feel it. If you're 55, you've got maybe 30 summers left, and only about 20 of them are in the go-go column. One more year at a job, and it doesn't come off the end of that list. It comes off the top, off your best years. Nobody puts that on your retirement statement, but it's only the balance that actually matters. Time. Lever number 2, the withdrawal rate. How much you pull out of your savings each year. Remember that 4% rule baked into every calculator? Let me show you how much life is hiding inside that single percentage point. The 4% rule comes from research on the absolute worst retirement timing in modern history. It's designed so the money survives even if you retire at the worst possible moment. On 500,000, 4% is $20,000 a year. That's the floor everyone quotes. But the same researcher who created the 4% rule later revised his own number upward, closer to 4.8%. Same 500,000, now 24,000 a year. And if you're willing to be flexible, spend a little less in a bad market and a little more when there's good ones. That's what planners call guardrails. The research supports rates around 5% 5.8. Same pot, 29,000 a year. Look at that spread, 20,000 or 29,000 a year from the same 500,000. The only difference is how rigid your plan is. That's a 45% raise, and the price is simply staying flexible. The calculators assume that you're a robot that keeps withdrawing at the same amount while the market burns. You're not. You're a person with a brain who can skip the big trip on a bad year. And I know exactly what the skeptic in your head is saying, but what happens when the market crashes a year after I retire? That fear has a name: sequence of returns risk. All that means is a crash hitting early before your savings have time to recover. And it's real. But notice something. It's the strongest argument for flexibility, not against retirement. The retiree who gets destroyed by a crash is the rigid one, pulling the same fixed amount from a falling portfolio no matter what. The flexible one trims spending on the bad years, leans on the cheaper phases, and keeps cash so nothing has to be sold at the bottom. That's exactly what the guardrails research is built around. And remember one important detail: you haven't lost anything until you sell. If you've got your year covered with cash and other safe holdings, you can wait out a bad stretch. And if you're in your mid 40s or 50s or early 60s, you lived through plenty of ugly markets. You've seen how they rebound. Most rebound quickly, 2008 being the slow one. If you'd put all your money in back in 2008 and held it until now, you'd be doing pretty well. So when you retire, flexibility is how you get through the rough stretches, not working until you're 65 or 70. Now, before we go further, let me be straight about my own numbers. Some of you have already done the math. $60,000 a year out of $500,000 is about triple what the calculators, gurus, and textbooks allow. So why am I not broke 3 years in? Because I don't follow the 4% rule. I actively manage my own investments. It's work I choose, work I enjoy, and work I'm experienced in. I'm comfortable with the risk I've decided to take. That's my lever. It doesn't have to be yours. So let me give you an honest menu. The way I think about it, there are 3 tiers based on how much risk you're willing to carry and how hands-on you want to be with your own money. Tier 1 is set it and forget it. Broad index funds, some bonds, and the classic 4% rule on 500,000. That's about 20,000 a year. And your only job is to leave it alone. Lowest risk, lowest payout, zero involvement. Nothing wrong with living here. This is the tier that every calculator assumes you're in. Tier 2, that's the flexible one. Still mostly diversified funds, but now you're running the guardrails. Spend a little less in the down years, spend a little bit more in the good ones. Maybe tilt part of that portfolio towards companies that pay you dividends, regular cash payouts, to 5.8%. That's 4.8 to 5.8%. So $24,000 to $29,000 a year from the same pot. The price of admission is checking in a few times a year and being genuinely willing to be flexible when the markets say so. And tier number 3, that's where I live. And no, my version isn't day trading or lottery tickets. It's a portfolio I actively manage, split into 5 equal parts. Treasuries, loans to the US government, the 7 to 10 year kind. That's the anchor. Gold is number 2. Then number 3, smaller American companies, what the pros call small caps. 4, the biggest tech companies in the NASDAQ. 5, the biggest household name companies on the NYSE stock exchange. I ran that exact blend across 10 years. It averaged somewhere around 11 to 12% a year. That's what gets me to spend 12%, roughly what the portfolio has historically produced. Now, let me be blunt about why that's still tier 3, because on paper, with treasuries and gold in the mix, it almost looks conservative. The risk isn't the ingredients. The risk is that I'm spending close to the portfolio's average years, which means I have almost no cushion. A bad year comes straight out of my savings. A losing stretch would force me to adapt fast. The last decade was kind to the mix. The next one owes me nothing. It takes attention, discipline, and a stomach for the red months. And it's absolutely not a requirement for retiring early. It's the choice I made because managing money is work I genuinely love. If that's not you, don't come to tier 3. Tier 1 and tier 2 are realistic figures. Build your plan there. So here's a straight answer to the question in the title. Can you retire on $500,000 or more? Yes, if one or two things are true. Truly fits tier 1 or tier 2, 20,000 to 29,000. And that would fit for more people than you think. Once the mortgage is done and the job costs are gone, it does. Or you can close the gap with one of these things: a part-time income you actually enjoy, a spouse still earning, or the one everybody still forgets. Social Security arrives in your mid-60s, which means your $500,000 doesn't have to carry the whole load forever. It only has to bridge the gap there. Stack those first two levers and watch the $1 million myth wobble. Your real spending is lower than the 80% rule guessed. It declines over time, and your pot can safely pay out more than 4%. Run that math with honest inputs, and most people's real number lands hundreds of thousands of dollars below what they've been chasing. Close enough that the gap closes in a couple of years instead of 15. Which brings me to lever number 3, the one that stops most early retirements before they start. Because it's one thing to have enough money, it's another to be able to reach it before the government says you're allowed. Most of your savings probably live in retirement accounts with a big lock on them until age 59 and a half. Touch them early and the standard story goes, and you pay the penalty. So people conclude, I can't retire in my 50s. My money's locked up. And they head back to their desk for another decade, guarding money that actually can't be kept from them because the lock has doors on it. There's a rule that lets you take penalty-free withdrawals from a 401k if you leave your employer in or after the year you turn 55. There's a rule with a boring name, 72T, that lets you start penalty-free withdrawals from an IRA at any age, as long as you take them as a steady series of payments. With a Roth IRA, the money you put in, not the growth, can come out anytime penalty-free. And anything in a regular investment account was never locked at all. Each of these doors deserves its own conversation, but I retired at 48, too young for even that age 55 rule. My bridge was the simplest door on the list, a regular investment account, the kind anyone can open. No lock, no penalty, no paperwork. It's the same account where I run my 3-tier strategy. Everything I actively manage lives where no lock can slow it down. The point is, the doors exist, and almost nobody standing outside the vault knows it. And now let me hit the objection I know is sitting in your head, because it kept me up at night too. Health insurance. I can't retire before 65. I need the coverage. Here's what most people never actually check. Marketplace insurance discounts are based on your yearly income, not what you've saved. An early retiree living on savings can have a comfortable life while showing a surprisingly low income on paper. So don't hand over those years of your life for an insurance card without pricing in the alternative. It's a math problem, not a life sentence. So let's put this whole thing together. This is the exact sequence I ran after the layoff, sitting at my desk at home. And it's a sequence I want you to run this week. 1, find your real annual spending. Actual statements, 12 months, every account. Mine was 60,000. 2, I adjusted it by phase. More in the go-go years, stepping down after. Instead of a flat line to 95, I picked my tier. I chose tier 3, eyes open, because that's who I am. Your worksheet works just as well with tier 1 or tier 2. Number 4, I mapped my bridge, the regular investment account that carries me to 59 and a half without touching a locked account. And the spreadsheet that said insufficient for years, with honest inputs instead of borrowed ones. It flipped the same money. Same me, different answer. And the $1 million finish line I've been grinding towards was a mirage, built up on other people's rounding up. Let me run it for someone that isn't me so you can see it isn't a party trick. Say you're 55 with 500,000 saved, earning 110,000. The standard calculator does its income math and hands you a finish line around 2 million, 15 more years at the desk. Now run it honestly, your real spending from your actual statements, and that might come out to 55,000. Strip the job costs, the commute, the wardrobe, the stress spending, and your retirement lives closer to 45,000. Phase it heavier now, lighter later. And remember, Social Security hasn't even entered the picture yet. It will. Your real number isn't 2 million. It's a fraction of that. And you're almost all the way there already. I'm not gonna tell you the fraction because it's different for every one of you. That's the whole point. The lie was thinking one borrowed number could be yours. The truth takes one evening with your own statements. By the way, if you've got 500,000 saved, or anywhere near it, here's a stat that should take some weight off your shoulders. The average American between 55 and 65 has around 400,000 saved, and the median is closer to 200,000. You're not behind. You've been told you're behind, by the industry that profits from your anxiety. Only about 1 in 10 American retires before 60. Run this math honestly, and you have a real shot at being one of them. Now, has it all been perfect since I walked away? Hell no. There were bad market stretches. There were moments I second-guessed everything. Flexibility isn't a slogan. Some years I really did have to spend less, and it wasn't fun. I'm not selling you a fantasy where math removes all the risk. I'm telling you the risk is priced honestly, which is more than any million-dollar rule can say. But here's what actually changed, and it's a thing that nobody puts in a calculator. The day work became optional, my whole relationship with life changed. Not because every day is a vacation. It isn't. But because everything I do now, I choose to do. When it's optional, it's amazing how different the same life feels. People ask me, what do I actually do all day? They're probably expecting to hear which beach I was on or a breakdown of my latest vacation. The honest answer is simpler. Whatever I choose day to day. Some mornings I'm deep in the market, managing the account that pays for my life because I genuinely enjoy it. But now my time is my own, not squeezed around somebody else's calendar. Some days are slow on purpose. The thing I noticed the most 3 years in that is missing is the urgency, the deadlines, the have-tos. That's the feeling I used to carry every single Sunday night. You know the one. That's what $500,000 bought me. Not luxury, ownership of my own time and my own life. So here's what I want you to do next. And I want you to start tonight. Pull up last month's statements. Every card, every account, everything. Start finding your real spending number. While you're there, highlight every expense that exists only because you work. The commute, the wardrobe, the convenience spending, the stress purchases. Most people find retired life costs 20 to 30% less than the working life before a single sacrifice. And we're not talking about moving somewhere cheaper or simplifying your life by moving to another country. That's for another day. That one number is the beginning of everything. Because once you know what your life actually costs, nobody can hand you a fake finish line again. So no, you don't need $1 million. You need your number, your real spending. Adjust it for how retirement actually unfolds. Mine was $500,000 at 48. Yours is probably lower than what you've been told. And you can find it tonight. Do it now. It's 1 page. I've turned this exact math into a real number worksheet. The same 4 steps I just walked you through on 1 page. It's in my free Freedom Operating System community on School, right next to my free FOS guide. Links in the description and the pinned comment below. And if this changed how you think about your number, hit the like button so it reaches more people and subscribe so the next breakdown lands in your feed. Keep moving towards retirement sooner and living the life you actually want. See you in the next video.